Hello, everybody, and welcome to Making Art Public. It's our series of artist talks. I am Shawnda, your Palm Springs Public Arts Commissioner, and I am so excited to introduce to you the world-renowned, the talented artist. And you may have seen his works on the side of St. Paul's of the Desert Church here in Palm Springs. I would love to welcome Bernard Hoyes. We are so excited to talk to you.
Well, I hope I can match your excitement.
Well, I mean, I let's get right into it, because when I didn't know who you were, but I saw your art before I found out who you were, and I stood in front of that church and looking at this beautiful mural. What did it mean to you to create a mural like that has such a positive impact on the community?
Well, it usually begins by the request that comes to me, because I feel like I'm in this channel of opportunities, and the ones that are meant for me, they come to me, and all I have to do is be affirmative. So this particular mural came up because the church was looking for a mural, and they wanted something that spoke to the community and spoke to the congregation of the church. And it was a really, it's an Episcopal church. My friend Al Murray, who is on the commission.
Yeah, shout out to Al. Thanks, Al.
Yeah, he recommended me, and it was kind of impromptu because the deadline was coming up in about a week or so, and he says you wanted to submit something, and right away I knew what I should do. And the theme of the mural is cast your bread upon the waters, the unintended consequence of doing good. And it spoke to the church and the congregation of the church, because it's a mixed congregation. And I just wanted to put down a mirror to the community and reflect it in a large scale image on the walls outside the church. And that's how it came about. The pieces kind of just fell in place. The historical contexts, especially the contemporary ones. And I wanted to make sure the images that spoke to this contemporary time was going back. I've been in the community of the desert now since the 90s. My wife, she was born in Palm Springs, and her father, he lived here in Palm Springs and made a life himself here for years, since the 40s. So the history of Palm Springs is very well known to me from a personal and a lived-in situation. So I understand what the real consequences are of living in Palm Springs for Black people and the LGBT community. It's a tough go. And also to the church, in terms of the Episcopalian and almost all the churches, they have a long way to go, because this is a mini Hollywood, you know. So, but to recollect the real living spirit that spoke to community, that's what I wanted to reflect in the mural. So I chose a cross current of people that was influential to the building of a diverse community, and made a statement about the things that drive the community, like the fact that Palm Springs is here because of the native the native population, and the fact that they were able to bring water and do a large make a, make a large contribution to supplying water in the desert. And it was a black man that Lawrence Crossley that developed the first aqueduct and set it
Oh, you froze on us. Hopefully we can get your
up
connection.
so that with the excuse of, you know. So, well, you know, about 3 years ago, we did a Day of the Dead memorial. I created a ceremonial table for Lawrence Crossley at the museum. And that was an introduction. And for me at the time, that was about 3 years ago. I heard about him through the grapevine, personal references, and he's kind of like a legend in the desert. So I was able to, in creating that ceremonial table for the Day of the Dead, I had to study up on all the different facets of his contribution. And I found it very sensational and amazing that he was in at the right place at the right time, because his introduction to the desert was coming as a chauffeur. He drove, he was a chauffeur for a Hollywood producer, and he would drive him out to the desert for him to play golf and to, you know, do the mini Hollywood set through the time. And while he had free time, he made a connection with the Indians, and he saw what the needs were, and started to use his connection through the producer to help with the development of the what you call cheap housing, and also the water. The water was one of his shining moments, because there was nothing like it then. Right. So yeah, but that's Lawrence Crossley, and he's prominent in the mural, and some of the bishops, that one of them was a black bishop that was for the church for 50 years. A lot of people don't know that. The very same St. Paul's. So the church has a legacy in the community that didn't get a chance to be told. So I wanted to tell it in the mural.
And it is so beautifully executed. There's so much symbolism and beauty in that mural. And if you haven't seen this mural, you definitely have to go down there and see it, or pull it up online. Oh, as we understand, you were saying that your wife grew up in Palm Springs, but where did you grow up? Where are you originally?
Well,
what brought you to the Valley?
I was born in Kingston, and my formative years was spent in New York, and in my college years, I came out to California, mm-hmm. to basically, this was where everything was happening at the time. This was in 69, 70. And I wanted to be where things were happening. And so I went to art school down from the Black Panther headquarters in Berkeley. Berkeley, which was the hotbed of protests and student for the Democratic Society, was very big then. I don't know if anybody would know of them, but they were one of the few diverse cultural protesters and community organizers in California at the time. You know, Aidan Ashbury, the whole Bay trip. I went right in and immersed myself into it. And cut my teeth as an artist during those time. I went to arts and crafts 70 through 74.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So that was it was still happening. Uh, it was an unfortunate thing for me to being an artist. So you have being an artist, you have art, a sensibility, but also a sense of purpose and directedness. And so in that regard, I was always pointed in the direction of doing good. So this mural, you know, the unintended consequence of doing good, you know, you just do good and good shit happens.
Now, did you always want to be an artist? Was that something that you always wanted to do ever since you were little?
Yeah, it was. I was raised by my great grand aunt in Kingston, Jamaica, and my mother was an office maid. She couldn't keep me. My father was in the States. He came to the States on the farm workers program, and he was a fugitive, illegal immigration fugitive for years. This is in retrospect, looking back at it. Um, and so my grand aunt, she had her own church, her own African church, and she did not believe in the government education. So she educated me at home. The little education that she had through Bible reading and studying hymns and the whole revival sect. That I was my first 10 years. That was my exposure. So I had a lot of time to think about my position in life and my present position in life at that time. And I used to create things for the because we had a backyard church, so we had to clean it and lay out the benches and the candles and the whole thing. And I took that to heart, and did little things, did little carvings with little animals and things that laid around. We used to make soap, so we used to have these great big bars, and they carved very very well. So I would use that as my first sculptural material. So that was pretty set in grain. My first exposure to organized school was when I was 10 years old. And that was a root, and I never liked school since. And so I always somehow pursued the art thing. And in pursuing that, other people saw my passion and they aided my passion. So I got to finish up my academic education in a prep school in New England during the 60s with the civil rights, and there's a lot of affirmative action things that were happening. I was one of the recipients of that affirmative action to finish up my high school education in Vermont at a preparatory school that normally I wouldn't have gone to. And they gave me a chance to shine as an artist as well as to make up the gaps in my education. And so I was able to graduate and go on to a college. Normally I wouldn't have, So I had the choice coming out of Vermont Academy, and I chose to come to Berkeley, California, and go to an art school there in the activity where people were doing great things for the society, So that was my thing.
You are blowing my mind right now, because all this experience from going from the East Coast to the West Coast and being right there in the civil rights movement, what is your take on everything that's happening now? Is this just a repeat of history? Do you feel like this time is different? I mean, please, ancestor, please tell me.
Well, it feels like a mirrored image.
Mm.
except that I can feel the energies, simultaneous energy
Right.
of the young people, not just in cities, but across the board
Mhm.
and across the nation and across the international strata, you know.
Mhm.
Um, like Malcolm was always emphatic about, we should not let her struggle be local alone. We should take it to the international sphere. We should, that's one of the reasons why the whole Pan African movement started, because the basic understanding of Black liberation is not going to come from the United States of America, because this is the number, this is the battleground. And in order to find your alliances, you have to go without. And you have to go and you have to go to the international courts and you have to get them involved, because we are having an abuse of human dignity right here in the United States. We were on that way in the 60s and the 70s,
Right.
but our point people was assassinated. King was assassinated. Malcolm was assassinated. Um, uh, uh, Kennedy, the younger brother, not just the older one, but the younger one,
Right.
Bobby Kennedy.
Mhm.
Bobby Kennedy has, um, not only did he have the sentiment that his brother had, but he had the legal agility that he could have done something in the system, and he was taking out the path of that. So the movement's been stymied, and so I'm worried that somehow this movement might get hijacked. So I'm still watchful. Um, the advent of the some of the rudderless uh, points that's been brought up
Mhm.
worries me. But the number one issue we have going forward is to organize this movement into a voting movement,
Right.
because we have to clear the path um, where we can make a difference, and that's in the system and the legalities of the system. Defunding the police is not a point of departure. It's really it really takes us off guard. What
Mhm.
we should be talking about is making the police accountable and moving towards the accountability of the police. We should be purging the all the police communities of the white supremacist infiltrators that's been infiltrated the police since the 80s. It's been going on since then, and the police unions are the main source of that of the problem, and the police union should be made accountable, because they're the ones who are making the difference in the abuses, and they promote and they encourage the abuses, including our current president. But I move back to art.
Yeah, because you caught me off guard with how much information, like I've never talked to you before, and this is our first encounter. So you kind of got me in the feels when you were explaining a little bit of the history, because um, I mean, you're such a beautiful resource that I feel like you need to teach a course in order for art and how art could heal the community. What is your take on how art can really heal by by creating murals? Like, have you like the George Floyd mural is downtown, and your mural is uptown, and how do you see more murals being created and the content of murals being created in order for the Coachella Valley to heal from its past?
Well, I think the concentrated effort to um, to provide funding
Mhm.
for individual artists and their vision of uh, exposing different parts of the culture of the Coachella Valley and the impact, not only socially, politically, but artistically. There's a lot of good artists that came from the Coachella Valley, and they're not documented. There's a lot of atrocities that have happened in the valley that's not, and few murals in India that really speak to some of those things, but mostly from the standpoint of the native Americans there, from the valley. But the removal and displacement of African Americans in the valley here as late as uh, enough documentation.
Oh, you're breaking up. We're not getting what you're saying.
Uh,
Oh, well, I mean, we're now held with a cliffhanger. Bernard has broken up. We're not getting what he's saying. I hope that in the next time we interview him, which now there has to be a part two, you'll be my first artist that I have a part two. And we would love to hear more. We're going to also ask for the first time for questions that the community may have to ask Bernard, and I'm going to ask him.
yeah, we could do that.
Okay. And we need to wrap this up because we're running out of time with our interview. But I'm going to call you back. I'm going to text you. There's so much we still have to talk about. Thank you all for tuning in today to Making Art Public. This is going to be one of the hot, controversial artists that we've gotten to interview. And we haven't even gotten a chance to even talk more about some of the works that he has throughout the world, not only in the Coachella Valley. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I know you're going to have a lot of questions for me and for the public arts, and we can't wait to hear them. And we're hoping to get Bernard back for another interview. Thank you so much, you all. Oh my gosh, I can't believe. Tune in next time. I'm Shawnda.